Another story that I'll share because of injuries is my injury. When I was jumping out of Grangeville, it was the summer of 1985, July 13th, 1985. The night of the 12th was a series of thunderstorms passed over the area. I got a call late at night, be at the base, first light, wheels up, first light. Got to the base and we suited up and took off. There was 8 of us on a Twin Otter. And dispatch was trying to figure out which fire they were going to send us to. We flew into the Selway Bitterroot Wilderness area, flew over a couple smaller fires. The one they wanted us to jump was the on the Three Links area of the Selway Bitterroot. So we flew the fire. It had already been a rough fire season, fairly active fire season. I think I had any number of fire jumps by that time. As we flew this one, the spotter changed the jump order in the plane. Bad deal. I mean, you never mess with the jump order, but he changed the jump order. And then he threw one set of streamers. It went right into the spot and said, hook up, get in the door. Well, the first stick went out. They made it right into the spot. Plane came around a second time, and I was hooked up first in the door. I went out, and the winds were completely different. I was probably about somewhere between 200 and 150 feet from the ground. When I just hit a pocket of dead air, I just stopped forward movement, and I just turned around just in time to see a tree that just plucked me out of the air. It was a pretty big tree for that country. It was a grand fir, had a lean to it. The tree was probably about 110 feet. And it had 3 tops. And I looked up and there was rot around the bole of the tree. And I knew I was in trouble. I tried to pull myself into the tree so I could tie off with my letdown rope around the tree instead of to my parachute risers, but there was too much of a lean to it. I couldn't do it without swinging in, and I was caught on that downhill top. I was afraid if I would have swung in, the top would have snapped out and I would have fallen 80 feet. The parachute hung in the top, and I had about 40 feet of parachute and parachute line dangling below me, or dangling from the treetop. I did the cleanest letdown, or the cleanest hookup, and freeing myself from my parachute risers that I've ever done. I was always somewhat of a tree magnet, but boy, I popped myself loose and there was no jerk or bounce at all. And I started sliding down my letdown line when the top came out of the tree. I had just started. As soon as I did that, I think just the change in angle, the top snapped out of the tree, and I fell about 80 feet. I hit one branch on the way down that pulled my helmet off, broke my nose, busted out a couple teeth. I hit the ground. Actually, one of the jumpers from the first stick said, "Boy, you hit the ground and you actually did a roll." But of course, the treetop is now wrapped up inside my parachute, so that came down and clobbered me again. Once I got hurt, they jumped the entire plane load. I was fortunate in that I had 2 EMTs on the plane, and one of them was in his second year of med school. We immediately started rescue operations, but we were pretty much in the middle of nowhere. In terms of the lower 48, we were about as far away as you could get from anywhere. I could look over I knew I had a very serious back injury. I could look over, I could twist my head a little bit, and I could see the fire probably about 30 feet away from me. So the two EMTs, my best friend Billy Martin, and my jump partner Chris Grove, they worked on me while the other smoke jumpers worked on the fire. They immediately called for Life Flight helicopter out of Missoula, Montana to come get me. Life Flight was on another mission. When they came back from that, they would come get me. I could hear one of the EMTs, Wayne Cook, he was talking about, this is serious. I mean, he would kind of get away, think he's out of earshot range, but he would talk about, this is serious. We're on the golden hour. We need to get him out now. Wasn't going to happen because Life Flight wasn't around. You know, now I'm hearing Dave Serafini, who was in his second year of med school at the time, talking about, hey, this is golden hour number 2. And now we're into golden hour number 3, and this needs to happen. I mean, where's the helicopter? The helicopter finally showed up. We could hear it coming. And the jumpers had cut down a couple trees to make a landing spot. At this stage, 3+ hours after the accident, I knew I had a serious back injury, and the pain was all in my back initially. But after that much time, you're no longer in pain. You are pain. I mean, from the tip of my hair to the tips of my toes, the only way to describe it, it was pure pain. I mean, I'd never felt anything like that. And because of the injury, we carried Demerol back in our trauma kits during that time frame. I didn't want any Demerol because I knew the only way I was going to get out of there was if I kept it together to work with the people that were helping me. When the helicopter showed up, I thought, okay, they're here, they're going to save me. And boy, I just let go. It's like, I remember it was just purposefully, they're here, they're professionals, they'll take care of me. And it was a conscious, I'm letting go. And boy, as soon as I did that, this white light opened up, and I stepped into it, and the pain was gone. I went from pure pain to pure love, pure joy, pure peace. It was incredible. And it was this bright light that I stepped into that, I mean, it was so bright, but it didn't hurt. I mean, and I could see myself, but I was outside of myself. But I could see myself from the front, from the back, from the sides, from the top to the bottom, all in one view. It was cool. And I could hear the smoke jumpers starting to really spool up. I mean, they were freaking out at this stage. And my best friend, Billy Martin, I could hear him say, Bob, you need to come back. You need to tell me that joke you told me last week. I can't remember that joke. And I don't remember what joke it was. I mean, but I remember it's like, yeah, I don't want to go back. I mean, that place hurts. This is pretty nice here. But for Billy, okay. And it was kind of like turn around in that white light and step back out. And told Billy whatever that joke was. And, you know, then I'm back in that pure pain. Well, the helicopter couldn't land. It circled overhead. And the pilot said, we can't get in. It's too tight of a spot. You need to cut down more trees. We're going to set down over the hill. You call us when those trees are down and we'll come back. Well, when they flew away without me, it was a struggle to stay there. The jumpers knocked down the trees. It took another 10, 15 minutes or something like that. But when the helicopter flew away, it was kind of like, yeah, I don't want to be here anymore. And that white light opened up and I stepped in again. And once again, going from pure pain, pure love, peace, and joy, it's like, I'm staying this time. I'm not going back. And I can remember just traveling through that light. I mean, I'm just moving. And it was great. It was wonderful. I think one of the things I really remember about that is when I was in that white light, there were no questions. You could not think of a question because you already knew the answer. It was wild. And to me, it seemed like I was in there a long time. And all of a sudden, this voice kind of like boomed out and said, you can't stay. You have to turn around. You have to go back now. And it's like, I don't want to go back, but there was something about that voice that's like, you need to turn around and go back. Like, oh, man. And I turned around and I stepped out and I was back. The helicopter was there. I mean, the helicopter had landed. And they were loading me up, flew me back to St. Pat's Hospital in Missoula. I don't know. I was probably in the field somewhere between 3 and 4 hours before after I broke out of the tree, before they had me loaded up and were flying me back. They got me back to the hospital, and it was, I remember them rolling me into the emergency room and the ER doc looking at me or looking at the nurses and saying, okay, what's he had? What kind of pain medication? What's he already had? And I remember saying, well, I haven't had anything yet. And he's like, nothing. Man, so they gave me morphine, and I don't remember much else after that until later on that night when they were going to operate. I think I got hurt somewhere around 11 o'clock in the morning. And by the time they got me out and into the hospital and the surgery team was put together and they'd done the CAT scans and x-rays, I can remember the doctor coming over to me and looking at me. Oh no, actually before that, I can remember I'm still back in the field. So they're loading me up into the helicopter, and the life flight nurse looking at me and saying, this isn't good. Is there something you want us to tell your family for you? It's like, yeah, tell them I got hurt, I'm coming in. She said, you don't understand. And I said, no, you don't understand. Tell them I got hurt, I'm coming in. Well, to jump ahead to when my doctor, it was Dr. Sterling, looking at me right before surgery and saying, okay, we're set, we're going to go into surgery now. We have you stabilized, there isn't a danger of you dying on us now. But I have to tell you, you're probably never going to walk again. And there was just that epiphany when he said that. But it's like, no, you do what you need to do. I'm getting up and I'm walking out of here when you're done. Well, the next thing I knew was 3 days later. They had kept me out of it for 3 days I'm all fused together. They did laminectomies and 5-level fusion. I broke my back in 5 places. I'm 3 inches shorter than I was my last jump. That's how much those vertebrae compressed. They kept me out of it for 3 days to let the fusions have a chance to heal. They put Harrington rods and a bunch of other stuff. But I can remember waking up, and first thing I did was wiggle my toes. And it was a religious experience. And it was immediately back to that, my telling the doctor that, no, you do what you need to do. I'm getting up and I'm walking out of here. And, after a few weeks in intensive care, I did. But I remember the doctor coming into my room once I'd woken up, and he was at the foot of my bed, with the chart. And I remember him touching my toes and wiggle your toes and scratching my feet and do this, do that. And I remember saying, hey, Doc, I got to tell you where I've been. I got to tell you what happened to me when I was out in the field. And I started to tell him. And boy, that clipboard went down, and it was like, I forget if he said, we will never talk about this again, or you should never talk about this again. It was like, wow. Something really cool just happened to me. And I'm here, and I'm going to be okay, I think. But, yeah, for whatever reason it was, yeah, he didn't want to hear it. So, recovery was tough. I was in the hospital for about 2 weeks in intensive care, and then home in a hospital bed for about 6 months. And, as serious as my injury was, as long and as hard as the recovery was, and it's been 30 years. It was 30 years ago last Monday since I broke my back. I'm still in recovery from it. I live with that pain of that injury, and it's there all the time, and it's a constant fight, a constant challenge. I still do physical therapy on a regular basis, and I need to be active or else the pain is too much. But as traumatic as that injury was, and as long and as difficult as the recovery was, it's nothing compared to what the agency does to employees who get hurt on the job. After I got hurt, I got put into the workers' comp system. And I really don't want to say much to defend the Department of Labor Office of Workers' Comp, but they actually do a fairly decent job for the task they're assigned to. There's problems within the system. It's archaic and it's difficult to get through. But it's really nothing compared to what your own agency does to you when you've been hurt. And I've heard this from other people in other agencies. Once you're damaged goods, especially with a serious injury. A minor injury, yeah, you move on from that pretty easily. A serious injury, especially if you need something, if you need accommodation, if you need help, if you can't go back to your old position, the agency doesn't treat you very well. And it was a long, hard fight for me to come back to work. I was out of work probably about 2 years on workers' comp, and I think the agency would have preferred to keep me on workers' comp. They would have at that time frame. It was pretty common to leave people on comp. But if I wanted an easy way out, I went to be a smoke jumper. I fought them to come back to work, and it took probably 10, 12 years for us to resolve it. I literally had to take them to court and we settled it outside of court. And all I wanted to do was come back to work. Even through all that, they wound up taking away my firefighter retirement. Of course, I'd never become a smoke jumper again. I'd never jump again. But the agency basically said, well, you're not a firefighter anymore. You're not a smoke jumper anymore. You don't need firefighter retirement. So they took it away, or else I wouldn't be here now. I'd been retired with the rest of my smoke jumper brethren who have long since gone. So, but it's worth it. I mean, it's worth it to come back and put up that good fight. And now I'm with the National Federation of Federal Employees, and we're making strides. We are making changes to the agency and hopefully to the workers' compensation system. Not so much legislatively, but educationally, so that what happened to me hopefully doesn't happen to that many more people. They still get screwed. I mean, they're not nice to you, but they won't do to others what they did to me. It's a long, hard fight, but it's been a good fight.